Welcome to the Glenn Beck program. I looked at all the headlines today. There's a lot going on. The world condemns Israel after the peace ship incident. Judge in Connecticut, town can't hold graduations in a church. Spain credit downgraded. House extends unemployment benefits on Friday. Did you even know that? The FTC has a new policy to save journalism. Oh, that's an incredible story. Meanwhile, Michigan is considering a law to license journalists. Fears rise in Europe over potential deflation. Ben Scott, formerly of Free Press, gets a job at the State Department. Some of these things are so vitally important. But that's not really the story of America. The story of America is so far beyond the headlines. And that's where we need to go today, because we are a nation divided. And we can talk about the news and we can talk about politics, but until we find the things that unite us, we're in trouble. And we'll close the book on the story of America. So let's make sure that page is open to the right page. I'll share it next. Talk to you about something that there isn't a TV executive or consultant or a PR person or an attorney or anybody that is in their right mind that would advise me to do. But it has to be done. It's counterintuitive for me to bring this up, especially if you know the way the press works. It was a 3-day weekend. If you want to bury a story, and that's why, what is it, item number 8 or item number 5, the FTC come out with a report on how to save journalism. They released it on a Friday. It's called a story dump. If you want to bury something, you release it on a Friday afternoon because nobody reads it. They don't read the newspapers. But if you really want to bury something, you release it on a Friday of a holiday weekend, because then everybody forgets about everything. Times are changing. Times are changing. And because of that, so must we. I want to talk to you about something that happened last Friday to me. Last Friday on my radio program, I was doing what I always do, and that is, you know, I talk about the news and we joke around and everything else. And I was ridiculing the president for his constant use of children as a tactic to further his agenda or to shield himself. He told a story in the press conference last week where his daughter said, "Daddy, have you plugged the hole yet?" I was making fun of the president, but no, I wasn't. Not really. Not really. I was making fun of the president, but I also broke my own rules. I brought his children and his family into it. And I didn't even realize it at the time. I really didn't. And I could tell you right now that I was misinterpreted. It was poorly handled, or I misspoke, or you misheard, or whatever the excuse is. I could use the Republican, Democrat, you know, double trouble speak. You know, look, let me be clear. The point I was making is, and then fill out the blank. That's what everybody does. That can't happen anymore. Times have changed, and so must we. I told myself, and I actually believed it for a while, I told myself for about an hour after I got off the air, well, I wasn't making fun of the kids, and I believed it. But then something happened. And I have to share this with you because, as I found out later that night, I'm supposed to learn from my mistakes, and we're supposed to talk about things, because there's something powerfully destructive in our country right now. I honestly didn't think I was making fun of his children. But then my wife came home. And I don't know about your wife, but my wife could speak to me in the softest tones. And she always does. And she always ends up being right. And it gets under your skin, you know what I'm saying? Well, I get off the radio, and it's about an hour after it, and my wife said, "I heard your show today. Why would you make fun of the president's children?" In something that honestly took me by surprise, I snapped at her. I mean, Where did that come from? She didn't ask me that question, but I saw it in her eyes. I snapped at her. I said, I wasn't making fun of his children, and I know that's the way they're going to spin it, and I know you don't understand the media cabal that's out there, and I watch these people, and I don't swear. I swore. I said, you don't look at these expletive people. I have to look at them every day and their actions. I know who they are. My gosh, I was a monster. And it took me by surprise, but I played it like, what? What? My wife didn't respond. She's smarter than I am. She just looked at me and said, I understand. Then she followed it with, I think you might need a nap. She did understand. I just wasn't ready to admit it to myself yet. She left the room, and I immediately issued an apology because she was right. I said a prayer. I got a nap in. And then I went downstairs and I apologized to my wife. I said, honey, you are right. And there is absolutely no excuse or reason to ever, 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 ever even come close to the line of dragging somebody's family into the debate. I've never done it. I've never done it until last Friday. And I hope that's my bottom. So all Friday, I'm thinking about this. Where did that come from? Where did that come from? I think I have an answer. I don't have an excuse, but I have an answer. And I share it with you tonight because I think it leads me to something that I think is important for all of us. It doesn't matter what side of the aisle. You can hate my guts. It doesn't matter. I think this is something that we have to talk about. Again, it doesn't matter what side of the aisle you're on. I think sometimes we can feel pretty alone. I think especially because, look, if you're Barack Obama, you're watching me, and you're seeing me on TV, you can't tell me that he doesn't look at times and just snap and blow a gasket on what I'm saying, because we fundamentally disagree with each other. He sees the world in a different way. Same with you, same with me. We see, or we're beginning to see, the destruction of our country. And our parties and our political system, our whole system, all of it, has been built to point the finger at each other. And in the past, that's been used, and people win elections that way. But now we're into something completely different. I don't think you and I are that different. I mean, we gather here at 5 o'clock every day to try to figure out what's going on in our country. We honestly, if you're like me, you wonder, how is it that nobody else sees this? How is it? Why aren't my neighbors awake? I went to a Memorial Day parade in this little town that I live in Connecticut yesterday. And I mean, it's the kind where, it's a flatbed truck or a little back of a pickup truck, and there's like 3 veterans in lawn chairs in the back, and they wave, and we all clap. And as I was leaving, a guy who was sitting next to me said, I don't know what's happening to our country, and I don't know why people aren't waking up. And I said, I don't either. I don't either, but a lot of people are waking up. And he said, I hope so. We talked about, I think this is the way maybe our grandparents might have felt, I don't know, 1936. They knew something was about to change, but you didn't know what, and you didn't know how it was going to end. Honestly, when I started this program, and I've told you this before, I thought others in the media would join me if I could just back up my arguments and have a good track record of being right on the things that I say were coming. Well, I've done that. And still the media remains silent. I'm guessing you've done that too, and you thought your neighbors or your family members would wake up, and now you look at them and you're like, what are you even thinking? How do you not see this? I'm not sure. The members of the media, I don't even know if they even watch anymore. They may have just convinced themselves that there's nothing but a show there, nothing to see, just move on, move on. There's a guy who's just greedy and wants to make money. I got news for you. There are easier ways to make money than what I do here every night. There are. Do you want to be the person spreading the message? Do you want to be the person in your family that's like, why are you hating everybody? It's a lot easier to not be called a hater every day. What's your motivation for watching the show? Wouldn't you gladly give it up? Gladly. If you could be wrong, wouldn't you rather just go back to, eating Cheetos every day? I would. I just fear that I'm not wrong. All right, so last week I noticed something that was happening, but it felt good when it was happening. Every day that I was walking out of the studio or walking home, somebody had viciously reached out. They felt it was their duty to call me every name you could imagine under the sun. Usually I don't really care. I mean, usually it's like, oh, and I just move on. I don't usually react. But last week, I was reacting. I didn't lance the boil. I didn't recognize. Because we're all upset. I'm upset. Barack Obama's upset. He'll say that he's not upset, but everybody is. If you believe what you're saying, how can you not be upset? I'm upset. The truth doesn't seem to matter to anybody anymore. There's you, but what? I was in church yesterday. I was upset at church. We were talking in the second hour. I go 3 hours on Sunday. Good God Almighty. So I go to church. And in the second hour, we were talking about this circle it's a cycle. It happens every time. It happened with the Roman Empire, the Ottoman Empire, the British. I guess the Soviet doesn't really fit. Will it happen to us? We were just talking about Moses and the Jews and how they got out to freedom. And it always is the same cycle. There's freedom. Then there's an apostasy, an unpegging from the truth. And it's usually coupled with apathy. Nobody really cares. They're happy. They're free. Everything's great. That leads them into bondage to where they humble themselves. And then there's the Moses moment. And there's a restoration of the truth and they become free again. I got to tell you something. I raised my hand about halfway through and I said, can we use a real life application here? Where are we in this cycle? And is there anybody that has thought, has it ever happened that you can go from freedom to this stage? Because I think we're in between these two stages. That have gone from this stage to this stage. Is there a way to short circuit the system? I was upset because I care. And I don't know why we're not having real conversations. The ship's taken on water, man. Do you see the headlines? This is the story of America. These are all, have you clicked on the Drudge Report? Like every weekend I'll click on the Drudge Report and I'll look at it and I'll be like, this is like, if I would have told you that all of these stories would be happening at once in the last 3 weeks, you would have said I was insane. It's like a book of Revelation, quite honestly. I saw the sinkhole and I thought, that can't be real. That's got to be a Halliburton thing or something. What is that? So, as I said, I don't swear anymore. I gave it up with drinking. I gave it up with sleeping in on Sundays. It was hard for me because I was very good at swearing. I was. It's an art form for me. But last week, I noticed that I was using foul language. People would come up to me in the street, and I'd actually say something back to them. And I was shocked at the time. The words were coming out, and I was like, wow, that's not you, but wow, that felt good. I felt justified. I felt they deserved it. And so I did it. I should have known, because I've seen Star Wars enough. Do you remember that? Do you remember that scene where the Emperor is sitting in that big spooky chair and Luke is, he's fighting his father and the Emperor just goes, yes, give in to your dark side. Release your anger and the transformation to the dark side will be complete. Good, good. You remember that? That is the scene that I think a lot of people in America are going through. I thought it was really, I went back and I watched it and I thought it was really interesting that he said transformation, not restoration, your transformation will be complete. We have to ask this question about ourselves and our country. On our country, we have to ask, who are we? Who are we? Who do we want to be? And it's the same question that we have to ask ourselves. Who am I? Who do I want to be? Not who I'm allowing myself to become, not the country I'm just allowing it to slip into, but who are we? When I gave the commencement speech at Liberty University, part of the advice that I gave to the students was, don't let life just wash over you wave by wave, because I got news for you, man. You're not a rock. And even the strongest rock eventually is just broken down to sand. You're not a rock. And life is just going to crash down on you over and over again. Your job is not just to stand there. Your job is to question with boldness. Not just the stuff that you don't think is true, the stuff you do think is true. Ask the toughest question you can. Know what's true, because that wave comes in, you better have an anchor. We're supposed to explore. We're supposed to create who we are, not just let it happen. Create who you are. I know it can be done because I did it. I'm a different person than I was 15 years ago. But here's what happened to me. I forgot. It's a never-ending process. Life is wave after wave after wave. And last week, I just let the waves crash into me, not recognizing the waves anymore. I went downstairs and I apologized to my wife. And then I asked her out on a date. She said yes, surprisingly, because she could go out on a date with someone much more handsome than me. And I said, let's go see Robin Hood. I've never seen a good Robin Hood movie, and I heard iffy things about this. I like this movie. This is a pre-Robin Hood story. It's a time when Richard the Lionheart died after bankrupting his country. Then his brother, the new king, comes along. He doesn't care. He's fallen into an alliance with enemies of his own country, and that alliance is turning everybody in England against each other. Okay? I thought, well, there's no parallels here, huh? It's the best version of the story I've seen. Long story short, towards the end, I'm not going to wreck anything. He turns into Robin Hood. Okay, I wrecked it. At one point, the King of France, who was, working on dividing the whole country, he's sailing over and landing his soldiers on the beaches of Great Britain. In the time that he launched his ship and arrived over to Great Britain, Robin Hood had brought his people of England together as one. And the King of France is on the ship, and he releases all the soldiers and everybody else, and they're all just slaughtered on the beach. And the king feels he's been misled, and he knows he's going to lose. So at this point, he says, send the signal. Turn the ships around. Because he knows the soldiers can't win against a united England. He then says this. This doesn't look like a country that is fighting against itself. We'll have to return another day. We have to find what we unite on. I realized that the frustration, anger, whatever it is, it was growing in me and possibly growing in you and Barack Obama and everybody else in America because we care. It is the power to destroy. We'll all be, Republican, Democrat, Independent, we will all be responsible for the loss of our country. I also realized that the apology that I made for the president and to all those who I disappointed, I put it up on the internet right away on Friday, I knew that it wasn't enough. But I didn't know what until I heard that last line about fighting within ourselves. I realized what I was supposed to do. Times are changing, and so must we. We have to raise the bar higher. Everything's about to change. And because of that, we're faced with a choice. Because these waves are going to come in and hammer us. America's in need of a leader. I don't know who that person is. I can't find him in Washington. Maybe it's you. I don't know. It might be you, might be your son, might be your daughter. I don't know. All I know is I'm supposed to be here and I'm supposed to do what I do every day. But that is going to change. Because the more, what is it, the old Sufi or Rumi saying, that which you gaze upon, you become. The more I gaze on this problem, the more I feel like I could become it. So what do we do? I'll tell you next. So when we last left the Glenn Beck program, I was telling you about what do we need to do. This is for me. Join me if you will. First, don't hide the mistakes of our life. Don't hide them anymore. You can't have any skeletons in your closet. Don't hide them. They're the things that make you who you are if you've conquered them and you learn from them. Second thing, let others see your failure and your rise. Let other people. The reason why I tell you this, there was no reason for me to tell you this. It only hurts me. But you need to know who I am, warts and all. You need your children to see you do what I'm trying to do here, and that is fess up to my mistakes, explain it, don't try to get out of it, explain it, stand up, be a man, and let your children see people do that without an attorney or a PR person or the so trusted wife standing next that you know is going home and saying, "What?" Let your children see it. Third thing, anger feeds on itself. Lance the infection. 4, we are the same. I don't care if you're Glenn Beck and Barack Obama. We're the same. We are. We're the same. Help each other. You need to reach out to people that you know are feeling the same way. And by not hiding things, you'll be able to help. Stand. But check the stars so you know that if you've drifted. Last week I didn't realize I had drifted. Check the stars. 6, clean out your spiritual closet, man. Get all the stuff. Get the junk out of you. Pray. You pray for me, I'll pray for you. I pray for you every night. Please pray for me. Pray. And then 8, refill the closet. This is what I couldn't figure out until I saw Robin Hood. Stupid movie. We have to refill the closet with something. Let me ask you, who do you trust? No, let me ask you this instead. What do we have in common anymore? What are the things that unite us? We used to be a melting pot. We're not anymore. You're over there, and I'm over here. And the politicians are always pushing us and making us hate each other. You're the problem. Oh, you're not the problem. You're the problem. The politicians, they'll bicker, they'll battle, they'll fight. They'll do it on the cameras, and then they'll go out and they'll have dinner with each other and laugh and drinks at the end of the day. Meanwhile, we're sitting here arguing with each other. They are the only ones that win. In the movie Robin Hood, I told you about a few minutes ago, Robin Hood got up and he gave a great speech to the people of England. He said, you got to unite on a few ideas. That men have a right to be free. That a man's home is his castle. That we have a right to our own labor and the fruits of our own labor. You have a right to a fair trial and face your accuser. Well, that's what united those people. And I thought, well, those are good. That's how unites us. But does it anymore? In America, we originally united on those same principles. And then we added some more. And we're free to express ourselves. And so is the press. We're free to worship according to the dictates of our own conscience. We're free to take risks and use our own initiative to become more successful or fail and then pick ourselves up and try again. Do we believe in any of that stuff anymore? Do we? I mean, are you free to take a risk? Really? Not if you're too big and you could be a danger to the economy. And can you get a loan from the bank? Do we believe these things anymore? If not, I contend it's because history has been and is currently being changed. We don't even know our own history. Which brings us back to the one question that nobody's asking. Who are we? We're being pushed down a road and we haven't even asked, wait, who are we? Friday, the FTC came out with a plan to put a journalist division in AmeriCorps. What? Joseph Palermo wrote a column in the Huffington Post last week that first embarrassingly mentioned that I'm now a doctor thanks to Liberty University. Dental exams are free on Tuesdays. I took issue with my, they took issue with my new favorite book, which is Sacred Fire. It's about George Washington and what a devout Christian he really was. But this author, Glenn Beck, historian for a troubled American, said, but one of Dr. Beck's main pet peeves is his belief that the founders intended the United States to be a Christian nation and that the idea of a wall of separation between church and state is a myth perpetrated by secular liberal elites. Progressives, actually, Joe, but you're on a roll. He goes on to say, it's not that Beck is wrong about the ambiguity of the personal beliefs of the subject by the founders, but he and others like him are monumentally wrong by overstating the relevance of the intent of the 18th century views on the thought and practices of the 20th and 21st century America. Wow, what an amazing admission. This is the argument we should be having. Can we just highlight those words again? From the Huffington Post. It's not that Beck is wrong about the ambiguity of the personal beliefs of the subject of the founders. It's just that I'm wrong that they don't fit the 21st century. We've outgrown the founders' cute, quaint, provincial little religion. Okay, all right, so there's something we can sink our teeth into. Do you subscribe to the progressive, living, breathing, changing interpretation of the Constitution that the things that were true about the founders and are no longer being taught in schools because of the progressives? Do you believe those things that the founders believed were divinely inspired? And the Constitution must be interpreted as they intended. Which one is it? See, he actually told the truth. And good for him. See, people need to know. But we're not even bound up with enough facts. I mean, you don't even know, what you believe about the country. What we must do now is put our swords down and unite. It is our history that has been distorted and changed. And that's what must be put right. Or as in the movie, the King of France will come, and we'll be warring with ourselves, and we'll lose what chance we had. More in a second. In case you just joined us, what do you think? And the show starts at 5. Here's the message today. We're a nation divided, and the entire system that we have built has been built to profit and prosper off our division. I am not the guy to come to you and point this problem out. I'm kind of an imperfect guy. I generally have a loud mouth. But I have to bring you this message today that times are changing, and so must we. So I am going to do my best to not be a loudmouth and find the things that unite us. Because here's the question that we have to answer. You have to answer first, who am I? What do I believe? Who am I? Why do I believe it? And then you have to answer the bigger question, which is who are we as a country? We have to decide that, and we better do it quick. I think it was the summer of 1969 that may have been the real turning point that led us here. I think we have the summer of opportunity again. I'm going to ask you this summer to help me correct the summer of 1969. Not correct it. Yes, correct it and then decide. Which are we? Which America are we? This summer, this program is going to dedicate itself to correcting the founders, the progressive era in the early turn of the century, and the summer of '69. It was about a month from now, it was actually a little deeper into summer, a warm summer night in 1969, that people gathered around their TV sets. Even those people who weren't at home found a TV set, and they gathered around. This is a picture of, do we have it? A picture of people gathering at Sears, okay? And all the pictures that we looked at today, all the boys have haircuts over their ears, and they all wore white shirts. And I know because I was one of those boys. I mean, I don't know about you, but I had that T-shirt for the moon landing. I saved it for a long time. It was a white shirt and had the big blue Apollo 11 logo on it. I don't remember how, old I was or anything about that time. I mean, I can barely remember my wife's birthday or my name, but I do remember that night. If you were alive, you could probably smell the air. Americans and people all over the world gathered together. And they watched this happen on a set just like that. They watched in amazement what one country could accomplish. These are people watching it in Central Park. I mean, anybody who was old enough to remember this knew that it was 9 years before that we didn't even think it was possible for a man to go to the moon, and just a couple of years removed from sending monkeys into space. And at the time of JFK's moon project announcement, we could barely get a man into orbit. And suddenly, now, less than a decade, men, Americans, were walking on the surface of the moon, and NASA was sending us pictures of it into our living rooms. Television was new. We saw their footprints on the moon. It was unthinkable. 40 years later, if we decided to do this again, do you think we could get that done in 9 years? That's half the country that watched and said, my gosh, look what man in America with freedom can accomplish. But 3 weeks later, this was happening at a place in upstate New York, Woodstock. It was sex in the mud, drugs, rock and roll, no values, no morals, no rules. For 3 days, 500,000 people hedonistically celebrated everything that the people who were watching the moon landing thought was bad in life. And they did it all under the banner of love. Whoa, man, you are harshing my mellow with that love thing. Yeah, it was groovy at Woodstock. Maybe it's just me, but I don't know. I don't think the, orgies in the mud with people you met 15 minutes ago, as Country Joe is screaming the F word on stage, is the basis for anything that's lasting in the happiness department. But this was the summer that led us here. There were two major camps in America. Those whose imaginations were captured by the spirit of adventure, innovation, ingenuity, the Apollo project. And those who were the sex, drugs, and anti-establishment mud people of Woodstock. Which person are you? Which of these two events was the most important to you? Which one was the most important to America? That question has been asked before. I'll show you the answer next. A house divided against itself cannot stand. United we stand, divided we fall. All right, we're a split nation. Well, what happened? I believe it was the summer of 1969. Which event was more important? Woodstock, the Summer of Love, or the moon landing? They happened within 3 weeks of each other. For me, anytime I would think of 1969, I think of the moon landing. I've never thought of Woodstock. I mean, loser city is what I think of. But I guarantee that most people in the Obama administration would say Woodstock over the moon landing. I know this in 2000, what was it, seven Senators Clinton and Schumer sponsored $1 million earmark for the Woodstock Museum. Let the dope-smoking hippies buy their own museum. Influential hippie slash terrorist slash now respectable Illinois educator, William Ayers, said this on the night Obama won the election. He said, quote, "It's one of those transcendental moments like everybody my age thinks they were at Woodstock." Hard to read. Anyway, this is a 65-year-old guy. Ayers called the election of the first black president a huge blow against white supremacy and a sign that the culture wars of the 1960s were finally over. That means that he thinks that Woodstock won. And maybe he's right. Let me ask you, the non-hippie, non-terrorist, which event better represents who we are and who we want to be? Which one do you want your children to, which one pushes them into a better person in a better country? Because this is the split. We're going to try to correct the history of the founders, the progressives, and the civil rights movement this summer. We're going to show you how the textbooks have it all wrong, and we'll show you in a way that you can check it for yourself. I contend that America is comprised of people who said we can put a man on the moon and did, and also those who roll around in the mud. Which one are you? The one who will fight for freedom to go to the moon and will think out of the box and accomplish amazing things? Or the one that thinks man should be rolling around in the mud and not reaching for the stars? This is the fundamental question. Who are we? But they have so distorted the history of the moon landing now at this point that it doesn't even, isn't it almost like it's a bad thing now that America did it? I don't know why. Maybe we left litter up there. I don't know why. It's bad. It's like the military-industrial complex. Massive waste of money we could have used on welfare or something. I don't know. But we don't even look at that anymore. We study more about Woodstock. This summer, not only are we going to restore the history of the founders and the progressives and the civil rights movement and 1969, I will show you where our kids' textbooks have it wrong. So if you join me this summer and you commit with me to restore the right questions, who are we? Who am I and who are we? By fall, your kids are going to be able to stand up for themselves and respectfully challenge the authorities. When your teacher says, well, that just says right here in the textbooks. I actually had somebody get a question wrong. In my hometown, a friend of mine, their kid came back from school and said, I got this question wrong. Where do our rights come from? They wrote God. They got it wrong. Mom went to the school and brought the textbooks and brought the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence and said, maybe you haven't read these. Where do they get rights from? 40 years ago, the 20-something said, don't trust, man, anybody over 30. Okay, let's remember that. Except let's change it just a little bit. I think we shouldn't trust anyone over 60 if when they were 20, they said, don't trust anyone over 30. And let's find out what we really believe and what the truth is this summer here on the Glenn Beck program. We started here at the stories of America, the stories that are happening in the world today. And tomorrow, we're going to start here. We're going to go to The World Condemns Israel After the Peace Ship. We've been doing our homework today, and tomorrow I'm going to bring you a look at history. I'm going to show you, I'm going to show you this. This is the question I asked this morning, has there ever been a time where the media or politicians have created villains before, and it spiraled the world out of control, and only until after did you find out, wait, that's not really what happened? Tomorrow. Also, the history of hating Israel. Man, a lot of people have hatred for Israel. What's the deal? Then the summer of 1969 and its relationship to the peace ship. And then something that just is, in fact, I think it's happening or just did happen right around the corner here in Times Square. The Socialist for a Free Gaza. Socialist for the Free Gaza. You don't want to miss it as we start tomorrow on the story of America. I just have to tell you, Aaron told me she'll give me $10 because it drives him nuts in lighting if I walk here. So you owe me $10. All right, couple of things that I want to ask you. Please make an appointment on your calendar to join me in Washington on August 28th at the Feet of Lincoln Memorial. Amazing week in Washington. Also, I've told you about this book. A Patriot's History of the United States. I think every American should have this book. There's a new one out. 7 Events That Made America, America. I have the author of this book. This is in stores tonight. Have the author of this on Friday as we discover or rediscover Ben Franklin. That's Friday from New York. Good night, America.